I'm not trying to get a conspiracy theory going on here, but what the hell is the end game when the Federal Reserve is the one who's going to have all these the notes on these properties, all these deeds of trust don't floating around out there. You have all the money coming through the Treasury.
So how does that affect the lender today? So someone who's in the industry, who's servicing, residential realtors, or maybe even commercial brokers, right? Who's in the lending business. How is that going to affect what they need to do today to adapt for the future? Or maybe it's just keep doing what they're doing.
So ultimately, where I think this is, well, this is going to be pure speculation on what's going to happen, where this is going. The one thing that where I was leading into is that the Federal Reserve is continuing to inject as much as $4 billion a day into the mortgage-backed securities pool. So it didn't just stop at the 1 point whatever trillion. It's continued. $10 billion a day, $8 billion a day, $6 billion, tapered down to about $4 billion a day to maintain the market where it is. So what that means for us is the largest holder of mortgage-backed securities right now is the Federal Reserve. So that I don't know exactly what we're going to have to adapt to. Right now, we're adapting to a little bit more of enhancement to our guidelines. I deal with a lot of self-employed buyers, and with those self-employed buyers, we used to just be able to say, hey, you're self-employed. Here's your tax returns for the last 2 years. Here's a estimated P&L. Let's just go ahead and move forward and close your loan. There was no real verification of employment. Now, because people's potential businesses can suffer quickly due to COVID, it can change on a dime so rapidly. We have to get up-to-date data on what revenue is coming through their business, right? So you get a up-to-date P&L, the year-to-date P&L they've scratched out, and then you have to look at their business bank. It's still working. It has to be evaluated to make sure it looks like it's trending the direction it should go. So there's some enhancements that we're experiencing. We have to be a little bit more cognizant of the ins and outs of a person and their business and their income and all these things. Not only that, is there's going to be continued changes on how we do things. And I don't know what those changes are going to be, because when you look at it from the fact that now the Federal Reserve owns the majority of the mortgage-backed securities that have been distributed in this year, that would mean all these people that have refinanced, millions upon millions of people refinancing, they now have a loan that's owned by the Federal Reserve. Well, what's going to happen there? When you have the Federal Reserve has the majority of the interest in this real estate across the country, where's the money coming from? It's coming from the U.S. Treasury. It's not coming from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a private bank. We all know that. If you don't, then you're probably not looking in some of the right areas. They get access to the Treasury, which the Treasury creates the money, and the money is created out of thin air, and then it's lent out to us. It's our money that's being lent to us, but somebody else gets to. No wonder they don't care what the interest rate is. No wonder it doesn't matter that the rates are so dang low. What's also very interesting is when you start looking at the mortgage-backed securities pools, they have different coupons. Different coupons means different places where somebody's going to invest into that pool for a base rate, then you can add a margin onto it to create your regular rate. Well, another thing that's new to the industry, I've never seen a 1.5 coupon ever published. We're now publishing a 1.5 coupon, meaning that's the base rate that whoever invests into that pool is going to get a 1.5% return on their money. But then you have to have margins into it to be able to get the actual rate, to be able to pay all the people in the middle to get the loan done and then service the loan. Because remember, servicing guys are not paying for it right now. They're getting paid in many instances. So you have to add more margin. Now you're talking about interest rates in the low twos potentially. Just because it's just being published doesn't mean it's being released yet, but that's being published. So now we get these extremely low interest rates, probably going to drive more refinancing. I'm not trying to get a conspiracy theory going on here, but what the hell is the end game when the Federal Reserve is the one who's going to have all these the notes on these properties, all these deeds of trust floating around out there? You have all the money coming through the Treasury that's being created as thin air, which is usually public capital for the American citizen, but yet you're the one paying it back at an extremely discounted rate in a high inflation environment. It's the other thing we're looking at. Inflation is going to be, in my opinion, raging with all this monetary creation, the creation of over monetization of our economy. When you start looking at the money supply, it's through the roof. It's never spiked that high. I always tell people, go to John Williams Shadow Stats, shadowstats.com, look at the charts on money supply. You've never seen that happen. The spike in money supply, the spike in in corporate bonds, in mortgage-backed securities, in treasuries that the Federal Reserve owns is completely off the chart. Never seen before.
Yeah, so much there, Aaron, and it's not enough time to unpack it all, but but really, it's kind of unforeseen times in a lot of ways, right? So many moving parts, so much pressure on the Federal Reserve. Yeah, it's hard to even wrap your mind around it. And I think part of the American public, we get a little bit immune to it because we've been hearing about this debt crisis that we've had for so long, and it's like it's just at what point is it really going to hurt us as Americans, as citizens, as for global financial markets. In the meantime, people are refinancing, getting lower interest rates, right? And then I guess hoping and praying that this thing all, the house of cards, if you will, stays all together.